Today, we return to Train Sim World 5 to look at the first add-on from a new third-party developer called Athena Simulations. This is the ECML Diesel Railtour pack, and although I still have a generally low opinion of gameplay packs, I thought I'd take one for the team and give this pack a chance simply because I'm a fan of the Class 47, despite never having seen one in real life. Well, not yet anyway. The ECML Diesel Railtour pack was finally released on the 3rd of April 2025, after at least 6 months of development. Why it took so long is anyone's guess. I bought this pack from Steam, where the full price is £12, €14, or $20.49 NZD. Make of that what you will. In any case, the star of the show is a new livery for the Class 47, a diesel locomotive that we already had with 4 previous routes, namely West Somerset Railway, Northern Transpennine, Blackpool branches, and WCML Preston to Carlisle. I dare say I'm not the only one who thinks it would have been preferable to get a locomotive type that we've never had in TSW before, especially since lots of people want to see the Class 91 or Class 55 Deltic in the game. This particular Class 47 is number 47484 Isambard Kingdom Brunel. He was built in 1965 with the original number D1662 and received the name right out of the gate, as one in a batch of 4 Western Region 47s named after important figures or locomotives from the Great Western Railway. This class, of which 512 examples were built, was originally known as the Brush Type 4, and wasn't designated as Class 47 until the introduction of the Total Operations Processing System, or TOPS, in the late 1960s. It's interesting to note that 47484 has marker lights flush with the bodywork at the number 1 end, but the more common recessed marker lights at the number 2 end. The locomotive was modified in this way following accident damage in 1979. The real 47484 still exists, but was withdrawn in 1995, and has been stored at an industrial yard in Wishaw, near Waterorton, since 2006. On the subject of additional variants for the Class 47, something I'd like to see at some point is an add-on featuring more 1980s era liveries for use on the 2 Just Trains routes. It could include 47803 in her yellow infrastructure livery, 47522 Doncaster Enterprise in BR Parcels Apple Green, and 47973 in Midland County's Maroon. Of course, if such a pack were to be made, it would not be unreasonable to expect it to be sold at a reasonable price. No more than £5, methinks. When I realised that 47484 Isambard Kingdom Brunel is incorrect for the time period that ECML Peterborough to Doncaster is set in, my opinion on the Diesel Railtour pack just about did a 180. I think 47484 is more appropriate for the West Cornwall local route since A. That's actually in former GWR territory, B. It's set in 1991, and C. There is photographic evidence out there to prove that this locomotive has been to Penzance in real life. As far as I know, Athena's recreation of 47484 depicts the locomotive in its 1993 condition. The model features 3D number plates and nameplates, something I'll always be in favour of, as well as a decent recreation of the locomotive's distinctive green livery, which he received in 1984. The pack also includes 4 variants of the Mk1 coaches in British Rail blue and grey, but none of the variants are actually new to the game. Go figure. It's a shame that this pack doesn't include a kitchen/buffet coach like the RMB or RBR, but I've heard that a Mk1 RMB will be included with the Class 86 that Just Trains are working on. The specific variants that you do get are the BG, TSO, which is all standard class and open plan seating, a BSO, which is essentially just the same as the TSO but with a guards compartment at one end, and the FK, which is all first class with a corridor down one side and compartments on the other. Previously, the BG was the only one of them supplied in the BR blue and grey livery, and I guess it's good to get the other variants in this livery too. Another point in these coaches' favour is them being dual braked, meaning they can work with both air and vacuum brakes. Incidentally, I realised that, if you've got 3 of these vans together, one could be called Barry, another could be Maurice, and the third could be Robin. In other words, you would have the BGs. You also get the Class 40 Whistler and Class 45/1 Peak, but we already had these two with the BR Heavy Freight Pack and Northern Trans Pennine respectively. It's disappointing to see that Athena didn't include special preservation era variants of 2 Class 40s, namely D213 Andania and D345, which happen to be mainline certified. They could have also included some unique liveries for the Class 45, such as 45106 in her 1988 era Railtour green, or 45110 in BR blue with the white stripes on each side. As such, you could call the engine 7 Nation Army. The in-game models of the Class 45 and Class 40 were made for a route set in 1983, not the preservation era. They do not have high-intensity headlights, GSMR or TPWS, so it's completely unrealistic to see them running on mainline routes set in the 21st century. Regardless, the Railtour pack includes 10 scenarios for ECML Peterborough to Doncaster, which are apparently more interesting than your typical TSW scenario, but I rarely play scenarios myself due to my preference for timetable mode. Indeed, I've only bothered to complete one of the Railtour scenarios so far. 47484 can also substitute into the timetable on 9 routes, 2 of which are Blackpool branches and WCML Preston to Carlisle by Just Trains. Indeed, I prefer to run this locomotive on the Blackpool route instead of Peterborough to Doncaster, even though I don't know if he ever actually ran in the Preston and Blackpool area while painted in the green livery. Initially, the preview screenshots of 47484 showed some inaccurate details, like the high-intensity headlights being in the wrong place and the cabside BR logo being the wrong colour, but from what I gather, Athena actually listened to feedback and made the necessary adjustments to the model prior to release, so I'll give them credit for that. Despite the developers listening to community feedback on the DTG forums, some noteworthy bugs have still made their way out to customers, although most of the ones I noticed were on the included coaches. I noticed 3 on 47484 himself, namely the lack of blurring on the wheels, even when motion blur is turned on, the keyboard command for the headlights not working in the number 2 end cab, and, for some reason, the metal strip on the cabside window does not move with the glass. As for the coaches, their issues include, but are not limited to, internal sliding doors being stuck in an open position, the internal saloon lights not working at all, which looks especially dumb in nighttime scenarios, no functioning light panel in the Mk1 BSO's guards compartment, and, in the case of the Mk1 FK, visual glitches with the sliding windows, and no audio for the compartment doors. Curiously, the audio on the FK's middle door is reused from the Class 101 DMU, of all things. Before moving on to the conclusion, there will be a short intermission, and I think it's best if I let the footage speak for itself. This pack had an interesting concept, but poor execution with the recycling of the Class 40 and Class 45, the lack of any new Mark 1 variants, and, of course, its focus on a specific Class 47 that's unrealistic for the time period on Peterborough to Doncaster. Not helping the situation is the add-on being too expensive for what you get, not to mention all the bugs that should never have made their way out to customers in the first place. I've said it before and I'll say it again, we are paying customers, not beta testers. I can only give this add-on a 3 out of 10, and would not recommend it to other TSW players. Essentially, all you're getting for £12, or €14, or whatever it is in your local currency, is a new livery and nameplate for the Class 47, 2 recycled locomotives with no changes at all, and a new livery for dual-braked variants of coaches that we already have. This add-on comes across as a lazy cash grab, and if any future Athena products get released in such a poor state as this first product of theirs, I won't buy anything more from this developer. Athena Simulations had an opportunity to make a good first impression, but in my brutally honest opinion, things have got off to a bad start with ECML Diesel Railtours. If they wanted to stick with a new variant of the Class 47, they should have chosen a member of the class that's actually mainline certified in the present day, complete with modern cab fittings, and painted in a heritage livery. Something like 47580 County of Essex in her 2022 Platinum Jubilee livery would do the job. I just hope that Athena can A. make better TSW add-ons in the future, and B. listen to and implement more feedback regardless of whether it's positive or negative. I'm curious to see what this new developer makes for future DLC, but for now, I'll leave you with an obvious clue as to what I intend to look at for the next TSW review.